Robin. How are you doing?
So,
Robin, you run the Next Web in Europe.
I don't run the Next Web.
You don't run. You run the editorial of the Next Web.
I write for the Next Web about Europe.
Okay. Well, you have an announcement to make.
I do have a small announcement.
And then a panel.
And I actually think you guys hate me for putting me on the first panel after such a great party. So,
it's a punishment.
Yes, thank you. Well, but I'm here. I made it. So as Loïc said, I'm the European editor for the Next Web. So I spend my days talking to European startups, talking to entrepreneurs, and I know a lot of their challenges as well. So I've been working with the European Commission personally to identify a lot of these challenges. And I'm actually very happy to announce that the European Commission is going to take some initiatives to help make life better for European web entrepreneurs. And one of the things that we haven't been doing very well in Europe is celebrating accomplished European entrepreneurs. People that have really been disrupting entire markets, entire industries. We haven't done a very good job at celebrating them. And one of the things that we want to do is do more of that. We want to do a better job at celebrating them. So the European Commission has partnered with the Next Web. We're going to do an event next year to celebrate the best tech entrepreneur of the year. The event's going to be called Euro Pioneers. So it's an entirely new award show. We're going to announce the location at a later stage. But you can go to the website now. It's europioneers.com, and we have a Twitter handle at europioneers. There it is. So you can sign up to get more information, but basically we want to become the Oscars for European tech. That's what we want to do. So thank you.
It's great. It's great that you do all of that for Europe. We're really happy that the Next Web is a partner of LeWeb again.
Happy to be a partner.
Let me call your panel, and then we'll leave you the stage.
Please do.
Brad Garlinghouse, who is the CEO of YouSendIt, Aditya Agarwal, who is the VP of Engineering of Dropbox, and Werner Vogels, the CTO of Amazon. Thrilled to have you.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Robin.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
All right. So we're very lucky to have these three gentlemen on stage today for our cloud panel. I think that the official title of the panel is Our Heads Are in the Cloud, which is more than true after last night's party. So I'm going to ask you to briefly introduce yourselves and the company, just briefly, so that people get an idea of your backgrounds.
My name is Brad Garlinghouse. I'm the CEO of a company called YouSendIt. We are a file management, file storage company, started about 8 years ago. 37 or 38 million users, used in about 98% of the Fortune 500, and growing very quickly.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Aditya Agarwal. I'm the VP of Engineering at Dropbox. Dropbox is a service that lets you really easily share, sync, and store all of your data. We recently hit 100 million users, also used by 95% of Fortune 500 companies. And I think the interesting stat for us is we have over 1 billion files synced every 24 hours.
So I'm Werner Vogels. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Amazon.com. So we also have Amazon Web Services, which is our cloud division, one of the pioneers in cloud computing, and happy to power most of the web startups around the world.
There you go. And he actually introduced himself as the system administrator of a large bookshop in an email, which is, I think it's a line he's been using for years, but it still works really well. So 38 million registered users, 100 million. How many users do you have, Werner?
Well, you mean in the cloud business? It's
Yes.
about, I think we don't have an accurate, the best count we can give is hundreds of thousands of businesses in around 190 countries around the world.
All right, so you're squarely focused on businesses, developers, small companies, large companies.
Yeah, the original mission of the Amazon Web Services was to help businesses and developers develop scalable, sophisticated applications. Now, that was 6 years ago.
Right.
The world is quite different today.
Right. So YouSendIt used to be a consumer-facing product, as now a little bit of both. Well, actually, was it 70% of your business is now from enterprises?
Yeah, about 70% of our paid users are inside corporate organizations. We still get about 30 to 50,000 new registrations every day, and there's no doubt that the very basis of kind of the consumerization of IT continues to drive our business. So not at all that we don't want to address that kind of free layer for a consumer use case, but for so many of our users, it is moving up that ladder and serving that professional end user.
Right. What do you mean by the consumerization of IT?
Well, so I think all of us have witnessed firsthand the really first phenomenon, in my judgment, was bring your own device. The idea basically being that no longer is the BlackBerry the only device offered through an IT organization. We all
Fortunately.
yeah, fortunately. BlackBerry is still good advice, but bringing the iPhone into the organization, I think, was the first example of the consumerization of the IT organization, where more and more decisions for IT managers are being made by the end user. And one of the things we are very proud of at YouSendIt is we're loved by end users, but approved by IT by virtue of what we've done with security, and really serving. We have a 20,000 seat license with a Fortune 50 company.
Right.
You have to address the security needs of a customer like that then our free users benefit from.
Clearly. All right, Dropbox, when you go to the website, it reads like it's made for consumers. I know out of experience that a lot of businesses use it, but it doesn't seem to be targeting enterprise customers on the website. But how much of your business is actually coming from the enterprise?
I think that the way I think about it is that it doesn't have to be targeted. I mean, a lot of what Brad just said is that you shouldn't have to make a decision about using the absolute best tool, whether that's actually being used for storing your personal data or your data at work. I don't have to make a decision about whether I use my iPhone to make business calls or personal calls, and I'm probably using it halfway for both, right? So I think the way I think about it is that we should just use the best-in-class solution, whether that's at work, whether that's for your life, or whether that's even for using the all the APIs that you're using to build stuff on top of your app platforms.
All right. So, Werner, Amazon just had a big event, AWS reInvent. You've also made some announcements. Can you recap what was announced?
Oh, quite a few things. So, reInvent was a big user conference for AWS with Amazon Web Services in Las Vegas. 6,000 people attended, big show. We had a number of announcements, two really big ones, I think. One is the launch of data warehousing service, which runs us about a tenth of the cost of a normal data warehouse and actually runs 10 times as fast at least. Then we launched a data pipeline. It's really targeted more towards developers who, if you look at most of our large customers, all need to move data from one place to another in a scheduled fashion and then execute analytics on them. We offer a workflow service now for that as well. Two new instance types. One really large memory machine, so 240 gigabytes of memory, and a large storage machine, 48 disks, 24 terabytes. So one is for very large data set and then analytics in the other for those who want to run in-memory databases, and there's quite a lot of intention for that. Quite a lot of interest in that.
Right. So I was actually going over the list of products and services that Amazon Web Services offers, and you can go crazy just trying to memorize all the stuff you offer.
We did 154 new services or major features this year.
But do you see that as a benefit? Because it seems to me that there's just so much choice and so much names as well for customers get confused sometimes?
No, it kind of indicates still that there is still a lot of pain in the development of large scalable applications. Yeah, so the things that we're focused at is, look at these guys both have really large scale systems. Now, what can we do to take more of those pieces away, and more of the pain points away, such that they can continue to focus on really delivering a good value for their customers without having to focus on the infrastructure side of things. Yeah. And there's still so much pain. So we can continue to knock things off. Look at a data warehouse this year. We launched DynamoDB, the NoSQL service. We launched Cloud Search. Remember, everybody needs to do search. Every application has search inside it. You wouldn't believe it. Every website, every internet site. And so everybody needs to run search. And so then we launched Cloud Search. So no longer have people have to muck around with Solr and Lucene and do all sorts of other tricks to make things scale. And so just try to take those pain points away so that people can focus on building better apps.
Right.
Yeah, it's an interesting analogy, right? Like having written a search engine in a previous life, I think that the number of distinct services, pipelines, just like through your stack that you end up needing to use is definitely way higher than 54, right? And I think that it's just crazy. I mean, I think there's still a lot more that could be done to make even lives easier for developers in the future. So I hope you launch 54 more services next year. Yeah.
So then part of what Amazon has enabled is the emergence of cloud storage service providers, file syncing, collaboration. Has this been making cloud services a commodity in the market, in a way?
I think there is no doubt, and one of the things we talk a lot about at YouSendIt is storage is a commodity. 30 years ago, a gigabyte of storage cost $300,000. Now it costs about 10 cents and is quickly on its way to a penny. Right. Or should I say a fraction of a euro. Anyway, so there's no doubt. And I think what you're seeing a lot of companies do, and in part that commoditization is being driven by companies like Amazon. Glacier as a product certainly is a catalyst towards that. And so we think a lot about how do we differentiate based upon the applications that we enable. Storage by itself, I think many of us will have things stored in many different cloud solutions, ranging from things like Gmail. I mean, the whole word cloud is kind of weird. They used to be a big bookstore in the cloud, and now we think about it very differently. But at the core, I think storage is absolutely a commodity. So we think a lot about how do we add intelligence and layers on top of that, leveraging things like metadata to create a richer experience.
Right. Is that the same
yeah, I think
strategy
exactly.
with Dropbox?
Bits on disk is clearly a commodity. It has been for a while. I think obviously Amazon has done a great job of basically accelerating that. But I think what's not a commodity is actually having something like this amazing experience on your computer where you basically drag something into your a particular folder, and then voila, it's actually there forever across any device that you want. And that's the magical part, right? That's what we all focused on building.
Let's talk more about the cross-platform usage of your products. YouSendIt is available, I'm assuming, for most popular platforms?
We launched Windows 8, we announced about a week ago, and across all iOS, iPad, Android, even the Kindle. We're really glad to know.
Even the Kindle.
A dedicated app on the Kindle, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that we would love to be supporting every platform out there, right? Obviously, Windows, Mac, Linux for our desktop clients. We have iOS, Android applications. And I'm actually going to be making an announcement that we are just going to be launching our client application for Windows 8 in the modern UI, which is going to be working across both the desktops and Surface tablets, basically running our desktop clients. So we're super excited about that, yeah.
Right. Do you see a lot of growth coming from Windows 8? What do you expect from Windows 8?
We're already seeing thousands of downloads every day. So it has been, thousands is an early start compared to our overall numbers, but I'm actually more bullish than I think many. I think people might be surprised.
Same here. I think that obviously we're just launching our application, but Windows obviously still has an amazingly large install base, user base, so we are anticipating good growth from that, absolutely. Right. Yeah, and we're excited to be working with the team there.
Nice, thank you. So Werner, a bit of an odd question maybe, but you target companies, developers, large enterprises. Has Amazon never felt the urge to build a consumer-facing cloud storage product like a Dropbox or YouSendIt?
I think we would like to enable 100 of those. Yeah, I think it's our goal to go after, for example, look at programming platforms. Yeah, we have got great customers in Heroku and Engine Yard and AppFork and others. But for us, we would really like to look at them and say, how can we actually enable 1,000 of them? Yeah, because there's so many more things. Well, YouSendIt is a perfect, great service, but we would like to enable many others as well. I think in Europe, WeTransfer is a popular, similar kind of service. But what I mean is that we want to enable many, many of them. And I think that's the goal. The more choice consumers have, the better. And these guys can, if we can help them, these companies, to focus purely on delivering value for customers, they can start building excellent products that differentiate from each other. And that's what you should fight for. You should fight for the attention of the customer. And if we can help them to focus much more on the customer, I think then we've done a good job.
Right. Do many of your new services and features for new features for products come from customer demand, or do you build things for Amazon's products?
No. They absolutely come from the customer demands from Amazon Web Services. But Amazon.com is a large customer there as well, of course. Right. Not necessarily the largest, but we have many, many large customers in that segment. And so, customers come to us saying, like, we don't really want to run out there. The data warehouse. The data warehouses are growing tremendously. When you mentioned Glacier earlier, many large enterprises are collecting so much digital information now that they have to archive that. And they have to archive it in a way that they had one tape robot, and now they need to buy a second tape robot. They have specialized personnel there, and it's not crucial to your enterprise. It's not fundamental. It's not building better and new products, which you should do as an enterprise. And so offering Glacier, which is a cent a gigabyte a month for archiving, is just revolutionary for many enterprises, for example.
Right. So Aditya, you're the VP of Engineering at Dropbox. Can you tell us a little, because your users are saving, was it 1 billion files per day, per 24 hours?
Yes.
That's insane. How do you scale it in the back end?
Well, we obviously are huge customers of AWS, in particular S3, but we also we have a really small infrastructure team. Actually, it's really interesting, kind of compared to where I was before that at Facebook. So we have about 10 or 12 folks in our infrastructure team, about 3 or 4 operations folks, and I think we spend a lot of time basically managing our metadata systems ourselves. And I think the key to scaling is to build the system that will help you get to 3x of where you are today, but not focusing too much on building something that will get you to 20 or 30x, because you never know what the challenges will be at that point. And the second part of always scaling is hiring the best people. So making sure you're just getting the top talent from Silicon Valley, from Seattle, and making sure that you're hiring the best engineers to help you scale.
Actually, it's a typical story that most infrastructure teams, even on companies that are really, really large on top of AWS, the infrastructure team is actually relatively small. I mean, when Instagram hit his largest numbers, I think the infrastructure team was 2 people. The same goes for Pinterest, 4 people at the moment. And so I think that's sort of a demonstration of that you can really focus on delivering value for your customers if you make use of these cloud services for your infrastructure.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to actually map out the how the size of the infrastructure, both the engineering and the operations, technical operations teams have trended over the last 3 or 4 years. But I'd wager that they're at least half the size of what they were, about from 6 or 7 years ago. A lot of the modern startups, like especially the operations teams, are way smaller than they used to be.
Yeah, but imagine that these guys needed to manage their own storage. You don't drive just to Costco and load your truck full with disks and then just, you have to roll them in on a rolling basis. I mean, they continue to keep growing, and then something happens like last year in Thailand, where 2 major hard disk factories get flooded, and then suddenly 25% of the world's hard disk capacity takes away. That would immediately impact their business if that was the case.
So that was a huge boon.
We have replicated supply chains and we're impacted by that, but it's not their headache anymore, it's our headache.
Right. Brad, anything to add?
No, I think those guys covered it.
Right, perfect. And so, Brad, you actually you were an executive at Yahoo before, AOL, and then you became CEO of YouSendIt this year. What compelled you to join a company as CEO instead of staying as an executive in a large internet company?
Well, I think one of the things that I look at in the way I want to spend my time, working with a passionate group of people about a focused set of problems. A lot of these big companies are great and do interesting things, but having a narrow focus on, helping an end user's life in a very specific area, if you bring the passion to that, it's really incomparable and I think unmatched. There are a lot of large organizations doing great stuff, and certainly Amazon is one of the leaders in actually enabling innovation at a large scale. My experience has been it's very difficult for large companies to do things that are really innovative, and my hats are off to those who can pull it off. But having the focus and attention, even in the space that YouSendIt competes in, we watch what some of the big companies are doing in the space, and it's just, I think, a lot easier to be nimble, whether you're Dropbox or YouSendIt, to offer new features and really specific kind of functionality that a Google Drive may not address.
Right. So a lot of people talk about Dropbox and Box, but you're actually quite a lot bigger than Box, aren't you?
We're about 3 times the size of Box in terms of end users. And
does that frustrate you in a way?
The echo chamber of Silicon Valley, which maybe extends to Seattle as well, is an interesting thing. I think people get all excited. I think what we have seen with companies like Groupon and Zynga is when the hype of a company gets ahead of its reality, eventually those things come into equilibrium. For Zynga and Groupon, that came into equilibrium through the transparency of the public markets. But I actually think, and we were talking a little bit backstage before this, the hype factor that has impacted Silicon Valley is an unhealthy thing for entrepreneurship and really the health of the ecosystem of Silicon Valley, in my judgment. And I think you see that happen in various companies where they focus more on the hype than they do on building a great experience. So, for us at YouSendIt, we are focused on delivering great end user outcomes, and that has served us well. I used the expression earlier. We're loved by end users. We're approved by IT. That puts us in a happy place, and we're going to continue to grow the business.
Right. So 70% of your paid users are enterprise customers. Isn't the name working against you? Because the company started out in 2004 as a very consumer-facing, large files, transfers. You didn't have to email it anymore. You could just upload it. Does the name kind of work against you in a way?
I actually totally agree with this. I think so many companies, they start as a one-product company, and the name of the product and the name of the company are the same.
Right.
YouSendIt is now a multi-product company offering sending capabilities and metadata around the send event, but certainly storage, sharing, et cetera, across many platforms. And we actually are actively looking at changing our name. It's a delicate balance because YouSendIt is a well-known name, and we'll certainly keep that as a product. But I would expect sometime the next quarter or two for us to look at whether or not we actually change the name to really demonstrate how we've grown and expanded as a company.
All right. Werner, quite a broad question, but you've been involved in this industry for a long time. You're a veteran of the cloud computing industry. How do you see the next 3 to 5 years? Is it easy to predict trends? What's going to happen?
Trends. I think there's two large consumer trends, or two large trends driving, I think, most of compute, what's happening these days. So the one is data analytics. I think more and more companies want to truly understand what are my customers doing, how are they operating, what do they do with my product, all these things. The deeper understanding of customers, I think, is driving data analytics on one hand, and on the other hand, we see a tremendous rise in what I would call big science. There's really accelerating science in a point that you've never done before. So one of the companies that makes use of our infrastructure, Cycle Compute, so they make these runs where they use 50,000 cores of all regions around the world that we have to do something in 3 hours that normally would be drug research that would take 6 months. Right. So now imagine if you can take cancer drug research and you can scale it up from something that used to take months and months to compute just to find out, does this molecule fit into this protein and does it lock it? Now, if you can do that in 3 hours, it's a tremendous, it is revolutionary for science. So data analytics, science, and on the other hand, of course, mobile. I think mobile now is your device. In the past, you would load your data on your device. Maybe you do that still as a sort of a caching effort, but in effect, all your files, all your content, all your music, everything lives in the cloud. And your device is just a window onto that. Well, these guys do a great job there in actually making that ready for the consumer. But if I want to step on the treadmill this morning in my hotel, I want the treadmill to reconfigure itself and just have all my content there. Right. Yeah? And then I step in the car, and the car continues to read to me where I'm just reading my book, and you know how it works. And so I think most of those things, most of those use cases are driving a whole new range of cloud services also being built.
It's pretty crazy, right? I mean, just taking a step back and just taking a macro view, it took us about 40 years to get 1 billion people in the world access to computing and connectivity. Takes about, let's say, another 7 years for the next billion. And by all estimates, it's going to take, let's say, in the next 5 years, there are going to be 5 billion people around the world that have access to computing and connectivity. So, we can all be here in the panel, but it's pretty amazing time to be as part of humanity, just like all these people having access to all of this data information. But when I think about the future, I mean, when you talk about trends, I look at the last 12 months and the number of phones, tablets, mini tablets, desktop PCs, TVs, cars actually as well, my weighing scale, my withing scale, my Jambox, and I look at all of these devices that I'm using, and it's this really interesting, really interesting balance between really happy to have all these devices in my life, but it's also making it really tough. Like, I just want all of this stuff to work. Right. I don't want to have to think about having my my music in one place. I just want all of it to always work, right? And I think that's why we are so excited. That's the future for us. We want to be the fabric that ties all of this together, that makes technology easier, that we don't actually have to make these complex decisions about what I want on which device, when I want it, is it low bandwidth, am I online, am I offline, am I syncing? These are going to be silly problems. You're going to look back 5 years from now and just I don't believe I actually spent, my brain cycles thinking about having access to my data in a particular place. This is going to be silly from 5 years from now.
So Brad, I don't think there's anyone on the planet anymore that thinks cloud computing is a fad. So I think it's well established now. It's very mature as an industry. But would you advise any company to move to the cloud, or are there instances where you say, this is probably not the best idea?
Well, I mean, I think using the word cloud is kind of an interesting one that I'm sure we could all poke at. I think there's no doubt that the use of the word cloud might be a fad. The dynamic of migrating applications to the internet is a cloud event, and I think I would recommend everyone take advantage of that, whether it's AWS. I mean, there's a host of services that are productivity services that are specific to HR, that are specific to, you name it, you can find an application that is a cloud-based solution that allows you to get to market more quickly with less cost. So I think there's various stats from Gartner about something like 80+% of all startups today are exclusively taking advantage of web-based applications to build out their infrastructure, and it's certainly faster. And as Aditya described, it means less operational costs for some of the infrastructure pieces.
But it's not only startups. I mean, we see it as really across the board. It's small and medium businesses, for example. They have access to software packages now that they did not have in the past. Most small and medium businesses do not have an IT administrator. And now suddenly they can get access to high quality software delivered as a service to them without having an administrator. And that's a big departure for them. But I think one of the other things that's most exciting really is how cloud computing is radically changing the way that IT is being delivered within enterprises. Yeah, where CIOs in the past were basically cost cutters. I mean, that was what they were charged with. And the only way to do that was to make very long contracts with companies. We all know these large ERP systems and the price tag on them. We know that nobody pays it. Yeah, it's all negotiations and the thing you have to give in return is to lock yourself in.
Right.
What cloud has done here is that to completely revolutionize that. Suddenly, you no longer need to put any capital up front anymore for anything you want to do. In the past, an enterprise would have a disaster recovery strategy, and they could only have one for the whole company. Now, because that was the only one they could afford to actually execute on. Now, a CIO can make a disaster recovery strategy for each individual business unit, or he can have 5. Yeah? And for the one that always needs to be available, he gives an always on, and he can do chargeback to that one, because suddenly cost for this particular piece is explicit. So enterprises are changing quite rapidly, where in the past they would have one CRM system for the whole company, and if you as a business unit wanted to go do something else that CRM system didn't deliver, you were toast. Now, a CIO is much more than willing to go with a small, independent, young business that offers, for example, CRM, really well programmable and good for mobiles. And there's a whole group of them now. And so suddenly young businesses have a chance to start selling to enterprises where they had never had before. And so there's a whole revolution coming in enterprise IT, where enterprise IT will look very, very different 4 or 5 years from now than what it looks now. There's a group of leaders coming into the enterprise that is young, that is used to having total control over software. Right. And then in the enterprise you walk in and then there is no Dropbox.
Yeah, it's great.
What? How is that possible? Yeah. And I remember one journalist at one moment said, "Yeah, but Dropbox, that's not enterprise software." And I said, "Yeah, because it just works." Yeah.
I mean, the way I also think about it is just like, I mean, I'll have a stronger version of an answer. It's like, yeah, you'd be crazy if you weren't using the cloud, but it's not about actually using the cloud. The way I think of it is like, what would you rather spend your time doing? Like, would you rather spend your time going, and I think about having done this in my career, right? Like, yeah, at Facebook, we went to data centers. We would buy fans and we would put in the data center because it was overheating. I'm like, I don't want to spend my time doing that. I'd rather be writing like, more interesting applications on top of that. And I can contrast that with the startup that we founded. And I was like sitting in my living room and I'm like, sweet, I'm going to start writing code today. And I basically go onto the EC2, the admin panel. I'm like, sweet, there's a machine now somewhere running in, Seattle or whatever that is running my code. And that is so much better. Like I don't want to worry about all of these things. And it applies to whether it's like, getting data center space, whether it's like getting IT software, whether it's actually getting my data everywhere that I want it to be. Life should just be simpler. Technology should just make all of this way simpler than it is today.
So on a bit of a personal note, because you mentioned you worked at Facebook, you were actually one of the first people to get hired at Facebook. I think it was employee number 9?
Yes.
Something like that? Okay. Yes. So you ran engineering. So what I'm interested in about is because Facebook itself is a cloud service, but how did Facebook internally use the cloud to make things run smoothly?
It's tough for me to comment about, so I've been out for about 2 years now, and it's tough for me to comment exactly how they're doing it. So the way I think that we always thought about it when we were at Facebook is, it doesn't matter if, the way I'd say it is 2 things. If AWS were around when Facebook had started, I think we would have been silly to spend time focusing on our own data centers.
I think Brett Taylor said that
Yeah.
several times.
Exactly. And the second way I'd put it is that even if, so, obviously there's backwards compatibility and it's tough to move a big service over to something new. But I think that hopefully whether it's Facebook or Google or even us, for the infrastructure that we build ourselves, our competition should be would we rather use AWS? So like that's the way I think of it, which is there should be a really good reason for using your own thing, because you should be holding yourself to the same SLAs, the same cost as AWS can provide. And if you can't answer those questions like in the positive, then you shouldn't be running your own infrastructure.
Fair enough.
The other thing I mean, this obviously isn't specific to Facebook, but the other thing I would add to this is one of the things we are finding in working with some of their corporate customers is we try to take a relatively storage agnostic viewpoint. So, whether the file is stored on a server that we manage, or whether AWS manages, or frankly, whether it's behind the firewall inside the enterprise, we try to take a very agnostic approach. Someone used the expression earlier that, we're going to have our stuff across lots of devices and lots of cloud-based storage solutions. When YouSendIt thinks about where the world's going, we think about how do we deliver across many storage platforms in a secure, scalable way that the enterprise will adopt and embrace. Some of what you were describing earlier that has driven the adoption isn't even the end user, Joe Schmo in an IT organization. It's the fact the CEO in the boardroom wants to access the board deck on their iPad. And therefore, how do you deliver that in a secure way at scale is what the IT organization is trying to address. And it's been fun to watch.
So we're almost out of time. One last question is geographically, where are most of your customers coming? Where do you see most of the growth? Is it still US, or do you see Asia and Europe coming up? Because I know that Dropbox just opened an office in Dublin.
Yes,
it's probably to cater to European users.
I mean, we're getting growth all over the world. The good stat I have recently is that we actually have 7 users in Antarctica, which I'm not sure exactly. We have 7 users in Antarctica. I'm not sure what they're using it for there, but I'm pretty excited by that. But no, a third of our users are in Europe, and we just recently announced we're opening an office in Dublin so that we can better support them by giving them phone support and obviously tech support and so on. So yeah, if you have folks who would like to work in a Dublin office, send them my way, please.
Brad, are you seeing customers from all over the world?
YouSendIt has kind of the classic startup mistake in some ways. We started life only in English and only priced in US dollars, yet still 60% of our traffic comes from outside the United States. Another thing that we'll be rolling out here in the next quarter or so is the beginnings of more languages, more currencies, and to address that 60% usage that's already outside the US.
Makes a lot of sense. Werner?
We just launched our 9th region in Australia. So just opened it. So if you look at the, so that's actually the first Asia Pacific region. We had one in Singapore, Tokyo, and now also. So then there's Europe, there's South America, and there's US. It's fun to look at the new regions, how things grow there. Yeah, and if I look, for example, at South America, enterprises are accelerating their adoption there. If you look at the US, it took a while for enterprises to become comfortable, to prove to them that we had the reliability and the security that they would require from us, and that they could get their compliance figured out. All of that is done now. Right. And it's clear that enterprises in the new emerging markets look at this and say, oh wait, if for example, Shell, Essen, Unilever, and the Washington Post or whatever, the whole range of these large enterprises are all committed to using cloud, it must be good enough for us as well. And so we see, in South America, of course, all the Brazilian startups and things like that immediately flocking to the cloud, but enterprises are moving much faster there than that they were somewhere else. And so that's great.
All right, so we're out of time. Thank you very much, guys, for a good panel, and thank you for your attention. Round of applause.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thank you, Werner. It's a great honor to have all of you here. Thank you, Brad.
Cheers, have a good one.
Robin. So, you guys woke up. Hi, everyone, if you just arrived. Next up is David Jones, who is the only British CEO of a French public listed company, and he lives in New York. That makes a very interesting breed. And we like to have, as you could see, we like to have speakers not only from technology and also from brands. There is the social and digital plenary too that runs today with all the brands there explaining how they do their digital strategy. And David Jones is the global CEO of Havas. He only has 11 or 12,000 employees, and he's very active in social responsibility, which we thought was really interesting as well, connecting to charity water and Scott yesterday, who got 400 business cards after his presentation. So thank you for that.